We're also going to have Stephen, who's through the Green Spaces Fund advisors, what their role is and what they can actually do to help you get the information that you need to put a project together, and also help you with the application process. We're going to have a look at the application process and the form itself. We're actually going to bring that up and show you what is available online. And then we're going to have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers, because I'm sure that you've all come actually with your questions ready for us at the end. So without further ado, I'm actually going to introduce you now to Sam Evans, who is the Head of Natural Environment at the Combined Authority, and he's going to give you a bit of background about the Green Spaces Funds and GMF and how it all came about, and then we'll go into some more details. Okay, so thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Debs. Afternoon, everyone. Great to have so many of you on the call for the first of these webinars. So you're our test case. You're the first one of these that we've done. So it's great to have so many of you on the call. So yeah, just a bit of background really as to the Green Spaces Fund and why we've launched it and what we want to achieve through it. So on the next slide, just a couple of important developments really over the last couple of years within Greater Manchester. So in March this year, the Mayor, Andy Burnham, published and launched a new Greater Manchester strategy, and that really sets out our vision for the future of Greater Manchester. At the heart of that is a greener, fairer, more prosperous Greater Manchester, and having greener and fairer amongst that is absolutely crucial for us, and really comes to the heart of what we're trying to achieve through the Green Spaces Fund. We also 3 years ago now published a 5-year environment plan for Greater Manchester, and this sets out how we want to improve the environment for everyone in Greater Manchester, improve our green spaces, protect and enhance our green spaces, but also how we're going to tackle the climate emergency and the biodiversity emergency in Greater Manchester. So I think in short, the environment and particularly green spaces and nature are really front and centre of what we want to achieve and what we want to see in Greater Manchester in the future, and putting green spaces and their benefits at the heart of what we're doing, and that's really set out in those two the Greater Manchester strategy and the 5-year environment plan. So if you just go to the next slide, Ellie, the Mayor's manifesto that he published before the election last year built on that really, and contained the commitment to improve our green spaces and open up our green spaces to more people. And the Mayor then went on to commit to creating a new Green Spaces Fund that would give small grants to communities to improve local green spaces, parks, other spaces, or create new ones where they are needed. So and thereby increase the amount and quality of green space that's accessible to people, that's good for the environment, good for nature, particularly in those areas where they are most needed by our residents in Greater Manchester. So that's really been our guiding set of principles as we've developed the details of the fund, the application form, the criteria, is really having this in mind, that we want to see and want to support communities. We want to support communities improve green spaces, and we want those improvements and those new green spaces to be in the areas where they are needed most, maybe where there isn't the access to those sorts of quality green spaces at the moment. So next slide, please, Ellie. And this is the final one for me. So this is just how we've taken that vision from the Mayor and what we want to achieve in Greater Manchester for our green spaces into the aims of the fund. So we want, firstly, to benefit communities in greatest need of quality green space. So through the fund and the way we're weighting the criteria, we really want to target communities where at the moment there's poor access to good quality green spaces, and improving existing ones or creating new ones will have the most benefit. And we also want to benefit communities that are experiencing inequalities. So really targeting this funding where there's the greatest need for it. Secondly, and coming back to what I talked about about the commitments in our Greater Manchester strategy and our 5-year plan for the environment is really tackling the climate and biodiversity emergency. So this is about creating new and improving spaces that will have a benefit for, particularly for nature. So we're talking about physical improvements to green spaces, not other infrastructure. And we want at the same time to help tackle the climate emergency as well. So we know that green spaces can help us adapt our city region to the impacts of climate change in the future. They might help reduce flooding. They might help reduce the risk of heat waves and those sorts of things. So second aim is really making sure that these improvements tackle that climate and biodiversity emergency that we're facing. And finally, the third aim of the fund is really, it's community driven. So rather than projects from organisations or others, we really want these to be community led projects. And we want to use this opportunity to encourage and empower communities to get involved in nature. We know a lot of this is already happening across Greater Manchester, but we really want this fund to be a way of supporting communities to take action on their priorities in their local areas, and to help them at the same time connect those wider communities with nature. And that could be through things like volunteering or making sure that these areas are accessible and open to the public. So those are really the driving aims of what we want to see in terms of projects coming forward, and of what has driven the way we've designed the criteria for a fund, the application form, and everything else sort of that sits in the detail underneath it, really. So hopefully that's helpful just to give a little bit of context, and I will hand back to Debs for the next part of the presentation.
Okay, so we want to look now at eligibility, who can apply and who can apply on behalf of a partner. So as you can see, the organisations here, we've got community groups, registered charities, including CIOs, social enterprises, CICs, tenants and residents associations, and also schools and academies. Now, obviously, we also have some accountable bodies here as well. So that is an organisation that can act as an accountable body and support an application from one of the organisations that I mentioned above. They will actually take the legal responsibility for the project and are financially accountable. And these include registered housing providers, so like housing associations, local authorities, and also local parish councils. Okay, next slide, please, Sally. So a lot of these aims here, a lot of the detail on this page here is the information that's just given to you. I won't sort of like go through everything again. We've got the aims there that Sam just spoke about, and then the sub-objectives and how we actually score and weight that. Now, all of this information is available within the application form and the advisory notes that go with it. So obviously we're looking for evidence of need, evidence in the application form of where that is on the sort of like deprivation scale, because those are sort of projects that we particularly want to give priority to, especially in this first round. And we need to see that it's actually improving a site for nature, or it's recreating a new space for nature and also for people. How your proposal is actually going to adapt an area to the impacts of climate change, what changes that it's going to make. Also, who are the people that are going to be getting involved? How are they going to engage and use that green space once you've completed that project? And then the bit that Sam mentioned, the encouraging and empowering communities. So a lot of that will probably be due to volunteer opportunities. So, and how are those opportunities going to come for those volunteers? Are they going to get any training and skills? That sort of thing we'd be looking for as well. We need you to demonstrate how your proposal, it's feasible, it's deliverable on time, and it's realistic. And also the big important thing for us with these projects that you're going to be putting in is that there's some sort of legacy. We want to be sort of looking at your application and seeing how you're going to carry that forward once funding from ourselves has actually dissipated. Like who else are you going to get involved? Where else are you going to look for funding? Now, obviously, we're not actually asking you for match funding for our particular funding pot, but it is a very good thing to put in if you've already got other people that are interested and you can see where you're going to be fundraising after to keep that green space open and available for the local communities. That's all the better for that. And also how it demonstrates good value of money, the public funding that obviously is the money that you're getting is a good thing as well to demonstrate. Next slide, please, Ellie. So from a timeline point of view, obviously the fund actually opened on the 7th of June. That is open till Monday, the 22nd of August. And then what will happen is in September, those will actually go to our board for approval. And we're looking for this first round to be actually getting back to you in October 2022, obviously. And this will be award letters. Also, you will get a letter then if, unfortunately, it hasn't gone through. And then that is the month that initial payments will be made for you to start your project. So you can see on this slide all the different dates for the different rounds. So we're working in a 4-month cycle there, as you can see. So it's a good thing to look at within your project when you're putting those ideas together. You might not feel that you're quite ready for that yet, or you need to get more people involved. So what we would advise is, rather than sort of like rush into this first round, obviously we want to hear from as many people as possible, but if you do feel like you need to get some more people involved, you also have to make sure that when you get that funding from us, so we're looking at sort of like October 2022, here you'll be starting, you need to make sure that you're ready to get going, that you've got everybody involved that you need to as well. So key targets, so March 2024, what we need to be seeing is that you're actually looking and evidencing where you're going to attract new investment, and obviously that's ourselves as well. We can use your fabulous case studies and things that you're going to be giving us to bring more money into the pot ourselves, to attract new corporates and philanthropists. I can't usually say that, so well done me. To bring more money into the pot so that we can, you know, help more projects and going forward into the future. So anything like that, like I said before, match isn't actually needed for this, but anything you can reference within your application form to show that you have got interest from the local sort of public donations, company donations, anything like that that you can do is really useful for the legacy of the projects. Okay, next slide, please, Ellie. So some of this stuff here we've already covered. Obviously, when the project's opened, there's a 4-month cycle. The applicants, you need to do the application form and enter your responses online. Within there's guidance notes and frequently asked questions. Now, what we're going to do with the frequently asked questions is we're going to use these webinars, and anything that comes up, there might be some questions that you guys have that keep cropping up quite a few times. So we're going to update that so it tries to cover as many questions as you might have. But what we do have is this next round, like I said before, we're going to be looking at high deprivation areas, and we're particularly interested in members, the sort of like people that are working and living within Greater Manchester, having access to quality green space that they might not have had for years now. And we're going to be looking at those in that first round to particularly target those new like green and blue spaces, access to those. So the Green Space Fund advisors are actually available. These are people who are experts within conservation and also within sort of like funding applications, that sort of thing. And they're actually working within your areas already. They're going to know your regions and exactly what's needed. And they can help you just with any questions that you have. They can also walk you through the application process as well and help you with that, because we appreciate that for some of the groups that are going to be applying, it's going to be quite a new thing for you and it can be a little bit daunting. So they're there to help you. And on that note, I'm going to pass you over to Stephen Hodges, who is a project manager for groundwork and an expert in this field, and he's going to talk you through what they can do to help you. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Debbie. Let's move on to the next slide, please, Ali. Okay, hope everyone can hear me properly. So yes, the programme to help support the applicants, the Great Manchester Environmental Fund came up with the scheme to have a number of advisors who work across Greater Manchester and across a range of organisations that you can request help from as an applicant to the grant scheme. There's 5 organisations working in partnership to provide advisors. That's the Groundwork Trust, where I work for across Manchester, the Royal Horticultural Society, Solar City, Lancashire, Manchester and North Merseyside Wildlife Trusts, and the City of Trees. Now, each organisation is employing an advisor, and we all have the backing of our organisations, so we've all got access to a wide range of skills and knowledge from our own organisations that cover quite a large amount of environmental themes between all the partnerships, and that specialisation is sort of like the richness of this partnership for giving advice. Between us, we'll manage a caseload. So as part of the application process, you'll have the opportunity to email for advice at any time you need it. And there's an email address to get into this advisors partnership available from the guidance notes and on the website as well. And it's at the bottom of this slide. It's the gsfadvisors@groundwork.org.uk. Now, the role of the advisors is sort of mixed. It's to provide sort of a critical friend that can help with application forms. So if there's a particular question that you want some advice about how to provide an answer that hits the scoring criteria, the advisor will be able to help with constructing your answers and giving advice about how to make a strong answer. If there's a particular piece of information or evidence that you're not sure about how to collect, so maybe you're a new group, you've got an idea but you're not sure who to contact for landowners' consent, or if you need some help around your constitutions, providing prices, things like that, there's a wealth of knowledge from the advisors and we can give that support. The advisors, as I say, work across Greater Manchester. So each of the organisations is going to have a specific geographic remit. So depending on which district or borough of Greater Manchester you're delivering your project in, you might get allocated an advisor on that basis. But we've all got our own knowledge and skills and experience. So if you've got a project that has a particular theme, you might get allocated an advisor that has a knowledge set around a particular theme as well. The other role of the advisors is to sort of promote the fund locally, to work with local authority partnerships and some of the other stakeholders to attend events and actually get into the grassroots of the community. So, you know, if there's a fundraising workshop in one of the boroughs, we might attend that to provide some information about the fund and provide help about applying to it, or we might get invited to a specific event just to talk about the fund. We recognise that some groups might not want help, but the offer's there as well. And I think as well, if there are lots of people wanting help, we'll be prioritising that help to the smaller grassroots organisations that might not have done an application before and need a bit more help, have a few more questions about how to fill in an application form. Okay, can we go on to the next slide, please? I'm going to spend a few minutes now to talk about the application form and the process. And Alicia's going to bring up the website for us. So the website, the main web page has all the information you need to make a grant application. The first part of the page at the top provides links to a lot of documents that you can download. One of them is the guidance notes, so I recommend you download the guidance notes. It talks you through the grant scheme and some of the eligibility criteria we've already mentioned, and it also talks through some of the questions and explains the kind of content that we expect from answers to for some of the questions that are on the application form. The second document is a Word document version of the online application form. And again, I think it's very important that applicants download this document. All the questions that are on the online form are in that document, but as a Word document, it gives you the opportunity to type up your answers, try different versions of the answers, trying to get it within the word count, and gives you the opportunity to save it. And it also gives you the opportunity to share it amongst some of the people in your own organisation. Being an online application form, it doesn't give you the opportunity to save it. So if you fill in the form first through the Word document, you can get your answers as you want them before you copy them into the form on the website to submit it. Some of these other documents, part of the application form will ask you to upload these in answer to some of the questions. So it's templates for activities and your activity plans, your cost templates for putting your budget together, you know, all these helpful downloads that you'll need to fill in before you submit it. Again, if you've got any trouble, your advisors will be able to help you either understand these downloads, or if you're having any trouble actually making them work, we can email them on to you as well. The frequently asked questions can also be found here, and any other documents we need to put from time to time will be here as well, perhaps with links to things like copies of this webinar if we're sharing the recordings of them as well. So if you scroll down the page, you actually get into details of the application form itself, and the application form's in a number of sections. Section 1, I won't spend too long here. This is just for you to fill in the details of your organisation, so who you are, who the contact is for the application, details about your organisation. So, you know, things like charity numbers, company numbers, email addresses, all the usual information. So we know who you are, who the applicant is, and we can do some due diligence checks on you as well. It also allows you to provide information for an accountable body. So if as an applicant, you're using an accountable body because you yourselves aren't of a sufficient size, or you haven't got the experience, or you maybe don't have all the things you need for this application, like bank accounts and that, you can have an accountable body from a local authority or another stakeholder, and this allows you to put the information in about the accountable body. Again, we'd ask you to make sure that you've obviously spoken to them and talked them through this application, so they know the content of the application and they agree as well. And that gives you the opportunity to say that here. So if we keep scrolling down. So again, some more information about your organisation. You can say what your organisation does, or more background for us, just so we can understand who you are. We know that when you're making the application. And again, confirmation of some of your policies and procedures that are required. It'll tell you this in the guidance notes, which ones you need to have in place. And this is just for you to tick a box to confirm that you have them. It might be in the future that we ask you to forward on copies for our records, as well as part of the application process or as part of the grant acceptance process. So the most important part of the application now, section 2, is about your project. There are 2 levels of grant, so you need to indicate which level of grant you're applying for, whether it's a small grant or a large grant application, and that's based on the level of funding you want, and whether it's a new or an existing project. And there's a tick box just so we know when the applications come in, whether you've had advice from one of the advisors, from myself, one of the other organisations. You need to give yourself a project title. So, you know, obviously, there's all grant applications, needs to be something that will stand out, and it needs to be something that you're happy for your project to be called, because it'll be on all your grant agreement documents and things going forward. So make it somewhat relevant, and it's going to last the duration of your project. Opportunity to provide a brief, and it is a brief, it's a 50-word summary of your project, and there's opportunity later on in the form to provide a lot more detail, but this is just a very quick, almost like elevator pitch. So if we put information up about your project on a website, if you're successful, or to help us with the shortlisting process when we've got a summary table of the projects, that's just your punchy description of what your project is, so we can recognise your project. Things like project location are obviously important for us to understand where you are in Greater Manchester, and if you're in one of the zones of deprivation, or if you're in an area that's targeting that has a lack of green space and access to green space. Shall we scroll on, Ellie? I don't want to spend too much time looking at every question. And again, you indicate which of the areas of Greater Manchester you're in. It's very important that you have the landowner's consent as well. So you need to tick the box to indicate whether you actually own the land, or whether you have the written permission from the landowner for your project, and whether the land's publicly accessible. Again, other very short tick boxy questions. Do you have your planning permission, or if it's not needed, are you on a protected site? The next questions will start getting a bit more detail into actually what you're going to do for your project. So descriptions of your project activities, things that you'll need to start uploading here. So you'll have the files that you've already downloaded in the form of Excel spreadsheets to upload. Questions are typically around the 200-word mark, so it's sufficient space to provide detail, but you don't have to go into war and peace on some of these topics. So things like who's going to be involved in your project, how you're going to maintain and sustain your project afterwards. Section 3 is a very important section. This is how we find out how your application meets the aims of the fund. And if you remember, there's a scoring criteria, and that's downloadable via the guidance notes, and the table that Debbie showed you before with the breakdown of that scoring's in there. So it's very important with the next few boxes where it goes through each of the aims that you spend time to actually say how you meet each of them aims. And again, if you're struggling, your advisor, if you'd like, if you ask for help from an advisor, will be able to point you in the right direction of how to answer them questions and provide sufficient detail there. So the question goes through each of the aims in turn. Section 4 is evaluating the project. So there's a number of boxes to tick here where you indicate which of these monitoring impacts your project's going to record as you're delivering the project and afterwards, and this allows the fund itself to collect some data about the impact each individual project's had, and again that will help in the future for securing more funds as well as evaluating the fund. You also have the option to tell us what else you might be recording, because there's a very broad range of organisations will be applying for this, and people will be recording information that's relevant to their own sectors as well. There's section 5 where you're telling us how much grant you're requesting, and this lets you upload the Excel spreadsheet where you break down your request to the fund based on the headings of the budgets that you're putting together, and if you have any match funding. And the final sections, you got acknowledgement. So again, you're ticking to say that you understand the terms and conditions and you understand the process of the grant application. You're consenting to the data sharing. And section 8, again for the declaration, obviously you have to click the box to declare that you're eligible to apply, and you're allowed to make the application for your own organisation, and if you have an accountable body you need to indicate that that's the case of the accountable body as well. And the very last section is your organisational bank details. We ask for this for 2 reasons. One is so there isn't a delay if we allocate a grant and you're successful, and we can make the grant payment as soon as possible as part of the grant offer process. And the second reason is so the fund can do any due diligence checks it needs to do as well. So flowing through that application, but you can download the form and the guidance notes off this website. And if you have any questions, obviously you can get in touch with one of us and ask the questions at the question and answer at the end of this presentation as well.